and not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org, and if you're overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, how to pick our representatives in the upcoming elections. And in the second watch, killer heat, natural disasters, public and mental health. What's the connection? For our social media question, we ask, what will determine who you will vote for as your representative in this general elections? We're asking you to share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp 876-997-3125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
All right, today's I quote says, "You owe everybody love. You don't owe everybody access. Guard your heart."
Okay, well said. Good morning, Jokal.
Good morning, good morning.
Yes, the first watch after this break.
You're invited to listen to Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, every Thursday at 10 p.m. First Thursdays, the New United Bible Way Church of God with Reverend Dr. Jasmine Brown. Every second Thursday, Apostle Dr. Elaine Richards, Public Relations Officer, Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, and Women of God in Service, Rogis Ministries International. Every third Thursday, Senior Pastor Fitzroy Carr, Praise Deliverance Ministry. Every fourth Thursday, Reverend Dr. Leonie Samuels, pastor at the Richmond New Testament Church of God in St. Mary. And on fifth Thursdays, Reverend Dr. Ruthlyn McClarty, Kingdom Covenant Family Church. That's Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, every Thursday at 10 p.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Thank God for Calvary. Thank Him for His Son.
Hearts and Hands presents a fundraising concert for Reverend Glenn Graham, Part 2, featuring Kukudu, Prince Hall, Orville Sutherland, Derek McFarlane, Desmond Saunders, Sister Arlene, Sebastian Braham, Unity Singers, Udrick Tingle, music by DJ Chinny, MCs Nadine Blair and Markland Action Edwards. Admission $2,000, pre-sold $2,500 at the gate. Ticket outlets at the Brownstown Pharmacy beside KFC. Refreshment on sale. For more information, call 876-885-1055. Friday, June 27, 7 p.m. at the Brownstown Tabernacle, Brownstown, St. Anne. Let's do this for Reverend Glenn Graham. A Love 101 endorsed event.
I was so undone.
I'm gonna sing of the goodness.
Get your CC Winans tickets right here at Love 101, 821 Hagley Park Road. $6,000 regular and $20,000 VIP. Don't miss out!
welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, in a few months, Jamaicans will be going to the polls for general elections. As a matter of fact, the campaigning has already begun. There are many who will be eligible to vote for the very first time, and some who have not voted for a while. If you're planning on voting, how will you make your decision? Well, to share thoughts in this regard, we have joining us so far. We have Michael Diamond, President of Consumers Intervention Jamaica, and Pastor Christopher Kennedy, pastor of Joyland and Abrams Mennonite Churches in St. Elizabeth. Good morning to you both.
Morning, Dylan. Great to be on. Morning to your listeners.
Great.
Good
That's
morning. Good morning.
Kennedy. Yeah, Michael Diamond with us as well.
Yes. Good morning to you and your listeners.
Yeah, good. Great. Now, gentlemen, some persons may be wondering what's the importance of such a topic? Isn't the matter of choosing my MP a personal decision based on my personal preference? What's your response to that? Beginning with you, Michael Diamond.
And you're absolutely correct. Yeah, that is a personal thing. Unfortunately, that is one of those decisions that won't just affect you personally, but of course your children and your community and of course your country overall. So even though it's a personal decision that has to be made, it has some very serious ramifications. So this is one of those things where we have to take it very serious because of course there are two things to which handicap Jamaica in the past, and that's financial illiteracy and, of course, political illiteracy, two of the most pivotal things that can help to propel an individual and a country forward. So that is the reason why these type of discussions are so important.
Pastor Kennedy, your take on that?
Agree. Personal. Yes, we need to think of the ramifications of the decision, and it's very, very important who are our political leaders. And so we have to understand that in many ways we're acting not only for ourselves but for others. And I think, one of the things I'd love people to do, everybody should have a sense of history. And one of the things that comes out of history very profoundly is the enormous sacrifice that the generations prior to us made for us to be here today. And we must always remember that when we're making decisions like those. We owe a debt to the generations before. We are in a democracy because despite all the faults of our political leaders in the past, they have made certain decisions that have kept us a democracy. So many great countries have had chaos and problems with their elections that are but Jamaica has remained a stable democracy from that perspective. And it's because people before us have made the right decisions.
Yeah. So I take it from both of you that you definitely regard this as an important topic to discuss. What are your suggestions, therefore, gentlemen, in regards to the criteria for choosing whom we should vote for as MP? Beginning with you, Michael Diamond. Mr. Diamond, not hearing you.
Yeah, man, that is a very sticky point when it comes to what are the criteria, because we've often seen where individuals are underperforming as far as representation are concerned, and we attempt to find what could be the solution. We do have in some aspects individuals saying that there should be some level of political science education for those individuals who want to be representatives. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. But there should be a criteria regarding an individual who actively and have demonstratively shown that, that selflessness to represent and to make sure that, they're looking out for their community and, of course, the country as a whole. So oftentimes, again, due to political illiteracy, individuals are easily distracted. unfortunately. And they'll go for someone who is more flashy, are able to give them incentives individually rather than to the community, and they'll make sure that they get their votes. But the good thing is that I do perceive that there's a shift away from that type of decision making, and individuals are not so tied to the tradition of just voting because of, and they're actually paying attention now. And we have seen that in the previous elections where there were a lot of surprises, and it came because of those individuals were not performing, and individuals are making choice based upon what they see that can happen, and they're also voting for change. So that
Mhm.
criteria should remain, where you want to vote for an individual who is demonstrating, those type of things, and not just simply promising. Because of course, promises are comfort to those who find comfort in promises, but nevertheless, vote for someone who has demonstratively shown that they have the people's interest at heart, and not just simply, just a loudspeaker.
Yes. And before I throw to Pastor Kennedy, I need to drill down more on what you said, Michael Diamond. What about the situations where candidates are parachuted into constituents? I mean, they don't have time to know them before the election is called, or very little time. What do you do in that regard?
That is problematic, of course. And I would imagine that what actually occurs is that the individual, based upon the party's reputation, I would say, they would choose based on that. If you have a party that has been very, very active, then you're
Mm,
going to use their reputation or their resume to say, what, if they're giving us someone, we would imagine that that individual will follow under the same principles. But again, it's still tricky, because if this is an individual who's not of the community and has not demonstrated any type of activism, or advocacy on your behalf, then
mm,
you may want to have someone who was closer and has demonstratively represented the community, and that can create, some conflict. But again, that is politics, unfortunately.
yeah. Pastor Kennedy, criteria.
Yes, as a minister, I tell you straight up, there should be somebody who has a fear of God, someone who
Mm.
has a profound fear of God. I said people all the time, it is the greatest possession that you have.
And what do
Jesus
you
said,
mean by
"Whoever
fear of God, Pastor? Break that
well,
down to those who
recognize
perhaps
that there's
don't.
a God who's going to hold you accountable for your actions as to how you treat people and the decisions that you make. There is retribution at the end of this life and in this life for the type of way that you treat people and decisions that you make. And we have a certain level of power, and you don't carry that out with a certain level of responsibility. There are consequences. Someone is going to hold you accountable. And I'd love to see that. As I said, it's the greatest position you have. Jesus said, when you love the Lord thy God, then your neighbor as yourself comes in. We want some people who just love people, and who are foot soldiers. When people love people, they want to be around people. We don't have
Mm.
any foot soldiers. We see these politicians once in a while. That's not somebody who loves people. That's not somebody who wants to be a part of people's lives. That's not people who are somebody who's concerned about what people are going through and want to learn as much as they can and see what they can do. And so I think that it follows through that when you fear God, you begin to love people. When you love people, you get involved easily because love drives it. Love is one of the greatest motivational force in this world. And I think we need godly leaders. I mean, a lot of people say that a lot of them say that they're Christians, but where's that fear of God? I mean, when you put $20,000 in a T-shirt, for example, and you buy someone's vote, do you really fear God? I want to see a politician comes along who is willing to lose if he has to hold on to his principles and his conviction, because you see
Stick
what's
up
going to happen
in.
in the long run. You're
Stick
going to
up
win
in.
in the long run.
Yeah, stick up in right there, Pastor Ken. We want to hear more in terms of your criteria list. We'll be right back. We're upon a break.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Don't let freshness ditch you when you need it the most. Wash your clothes with Downy Softener to keep dazzling everyone around you from day to night. Try Downy Softener now.
The name you trust to be your friend, to be a partner by your side. For generations we have been the one you trust as your financial guide. Sagicor, building trust for generations, helping hopes and dreams to grow, building our nation. Sagicor's the name you know. Sagicor.
Sagicor, celebrating 55 years.
Building trust for generations.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and this is the first watch. We are examining how to pick your representatives in the upcoming elections, whenever those elections are called. In so doing, we have online Pastor Christopher Kennedy, pastor of Joyland and Abrams Mennonite churches in St. Elizabeth, and Michael Diamond, president of Consumers Intervention Jamaica. Now, before the break, if my memory served me right, Pastor Kennedy, you're giving us a list in terms of the criteria: fear of God, accountability to God, and someone who loves people. Please continue, sir.
So people don't love people when they do things like this. You look at the roads, right? Of course, we know that Jamaica has limitations and that we're a developing country and we're stretched for cash. But when you take $100 million that was given to your constituency, that money disappears for a while. You know why? Because it's somewhere generating interest. And after 3, 4, 5 years, that road is twice or 3 times as bad as it normally was. And you use the same money, take the interest, use the same money to do the road. So you use the same amount of material for a job that is 3 times as bad. What's going to happen? The road's going to break up in 6 months. You know, that's not somebody who loves people and fear God. That's not somebody who understands that one day they're going to be held accountable for how they use resources and how they treat people. How can a country advance like that? Mashing up the road, breaking up the roads, are breaking up the cars, you know, the taxi drivers and the drivers are spending more money. Foreign exchange comes into play, you know, stress on the economy, that kind of thing. How can that be? You know, and if a person cannot sit down and think about how their role as a leader is affecting people, and you can't recognize that you're making decisions like these that are harmful and in the long run it's going to break this country. Listen, at some point we're going to be in trouble. You're kicking the can down the road, but at some point you're going to have to face the reality that you're damaging this country, destroying this economy, and wrecking the resources of the country. We want a politician that's aware of that kind of thing. I can say to my party, no, I want to be a different kind of person. Let me tell you something, it's going to help you in the long run. As I said to you before, when people see that you have convictions and people realize that you're held by a standard higher than you, they will vote for you. It might not come overnight, but one day they will.
Yes. Are you through with your list so far, Pastor Kennedy?
Pardon me?
Are you through with your list of criteria?
Oh, well, no, I agree with your guest too. You know, this person should be knowledgeable. I loved when he said some kind of political training. That only helps. You know, I don't want to use that, for example, as a way of saying that we should limit people, but we will seriously think about it. People might have an array of qualities, and sometimes you don't necessarily place emphasis on every area the same, but I really think that a person who has the criteria that I just spelled out, and in addition to what your guest just said, really is a quality person to use. And so I think that I agree with him when it comes to that. It was somebody who should listen. Some of these leaders, you can start, they don't even read. They're not even reading Dylan. You know, I'm seeing principals not reading. When I see people make certain decisions, you see that these people are not well read. They're not aware of history. They don't have a sense of history. They don't understand some of the mistakes leaders make. We need people who are informed. We have sometimes I get the feeling that my doctor not reading, you know, and I have several doctors. In case doctors are listening, I think I'm pointing them. And you get the feeling that some of these people, they are not reading. You get the feeling that leaders are not reading. Listen, when I look at in America and the debates and some of the people who are on the YouTube channels and so on, these people are not people who are reading. And if they're reading, I'm reading quite selectively. They're not well educated. Listen, a person who is well educated is someone who takes his education into his own hands and seeks to get information and inform himself. It must be somebody who is recognized that I must be self-actualized, because the better I am, the more self-actualized I am, the more informed I am, the more educated I am, the more I make good judgment and good choices, the more I develop myself, the better leader I am going to be.
Yes. I suspect, Michael Diamond, you wanted to come in.
You know, that's the challenge that we have, is creating a balance. And we do need a behavior shift as far as people are concerned, because what we have had is that, you know, you have a nation coming up from colonialism, and they removed the colonials, and yet still they kept the systems in place, and individuals are not aware of their strength, that the government should be in fear of the people and not the people in fear of the government. So getting that mind shift where individuals would be accountable, because the people are the government, not the representatives. The people are the government. And if they don't know the responsibilities and duties that they have to hold their representatives accountable, then we'll continue to have a breakdown of representation. Now, as far as a conviction for someone who believes in God, that is problematic, due to the fact that an individual who's going to represent the people, that individual is going to have to make certain sacrifices, that their own principles and ideologies have to be laid to the side for a national interest. Because oftentimes what we have are individuals who have their own self-interest and attempt to put it up on the people, and it doesn't have a national benefit. So finding that balance is very important, and keeping them accountable is how we do that. Because you don't want an individual that, for example, even where the church is concerned, you have pastors that are expanding upon what the Bible actually says, and they have welcomed certain type of lifestyle into the church, when in fact that is not what scripture is speaking of. You wouldn't want a pastor that is there representing something that is not from scripture, simply because he has a conviction that such should be welcomed into the fold. So we don't want the same thing where a leader would put a country on a path to which this is not beneficial for us. So it's very important that we look for that type of balance, and an individual who is well read and who takes it seriously enough, because at times emotions are not enough to lead a country. You do have to have logic. You do have to have intelligence. You do have to have education, and you must be psychologically sound, because what you're taking on is something so significant that at times, look at what happens in the States. When you see protesters protesting, it's because they have some level of political literacy that allows them to protest against something that they disagree with, and they're willing to put the government at task. Oftentimes, you're not going to see that here in Jamaica, unfortunately. We're not at that stage as yet, and we should be. You know, there should be protests of national interest, and not simply when some criminal get executed because, you know, he's loved by the community. The reality of the fact is that we as a nation can only go forward when we hold our leaders accountable and move away from emotions and use logics.
How do we hold our leaders accountable, Michael Diamond?
Well, one of the things is that we definitely ask questions, and we do have to find out what channels do we have to file complaints, what channels do we have to remove them. And unfortunately, we don't have a system where we could remove an individual once he's already been elected and now he's representing. But at the same time, we can hold them accountable, because we have to bring public awareness. A lot of times, the individual will say that politicians are corrupt. Well, we need to find that evidence and give it to the agencies that can prosecute these individuals, rather than simply slander by saying they're corrupt. We have to be willing to pursue that and investigate and get that evidence, and get our agencies, our tax agencies that we are paying taxes for, to do their job and investigate these representatives.
Yes. Pastor Kennedy, I ask you first, how was the fact that Jamaicans tend to vote for party rather than the MP that's before them? How has that hindered or helped the electoral process over the years?
First of all, Dylan, I really appreciate the response of Michael. My first move fear is God is not somebody you have to fear. Look at the United States Constitution, for example. These were evangelical Christians, you know, these fathers of the Constitution, right? I don't think we have any fear. And Western society have to understand that it is really driven by the Ten Commandments, largely. You know, the Ten Commandments play a fundamental role in the development of Western societies. When you look at the other societies, Islam and so on, you're not driven by the same thing, and the destruction and the problems that they've had. So I don't think that there's any threat. A person who fears God doesn't make those kind of decisions and plunders people and manipulates people. And, you know, we have to understand that we live in a democracy. We must respect that. And the constitution of our country is vital. And so I want to, you know, just make that very clear. And I want to thank him for making that objection, because you do have people come along and talk about God in that way and violate the respect of the people. Listen, there's something sovereign about this country. This is a sovereign country. And so you don't just get up and do anything you like because maybe you come from a certain denomination and you have a certain... No, you don't do that. I'm saying Jamaica is established on well understood Christian principles. And these principles are there to guide our consciences. And when we follow through on them, we've always made the right decisions and benefited greatly.
Yes. So, as I was asking, the fact that Jamaicans tend to vote for party rather than MP, how has that helped or hindered the process? Pastor Kennedy?
It can be helpful in some way, but it can be overdone. And that's clearly what has happened. I can understand the days of the 70s when people say, listen, I like the ideas of Michael Manley, for example. I come from a kind of PNP background. People wouldn't believe that, but I do. And I could see what people were after. There was a contrast in ideologies and values at that time. And I understand why people stuck to certain side. But that's not what's happening today. And when you start voting for party on that basis of it's just party for the sake of party and because you get some zinc and so on, that is a problem. And unfortunately, our politicians are exploiting that. And if you're doing that, I want to say, the politician who is doing that, you're not in the right thing. You're not in the you need to go and do something else because you're not helping Jamaica.
Yeah, Michael Diamond, your response to that question?
If there's been any good examples that that's no longer the situation, the past two elections have demonstrated that. If individuals are no longer of their, their parents, their grandparents that are voting along party lines, they'll rather to not vote rather than vote to continue the same situation that they've seen and they haven't benefited from. So the die-hearted politics is really dying out. So individual representatives now have to be more creative in how to reach the people, because younger people have access to more information. They're not swayed by their grandparents' ideologies or loyalty to parties. So that is a very good thing. So we are at a place now where we can shift that dynamic. Since independence, Jamaica has had 18 different elections. And what has happened now with the 19 coming up, it is a very significant moment. The country will either be going up or going down. And what will happen is that these representatives, while they're campaigning, they would have to demonstrate that it's no longer the old way of doing things, but we have to move forward. We cannot be tribalistic forever, because that does not benefit the country any.
Yeah. And I'm gathering from both of you that, generally speaking, the electorate needs to become more knowledgeable, more vigilant, and hold the reps accountable as we go on in this process. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Have a safe and productive day.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Listeners, the Morning Watch will return in just a moment.
Get your CC Wine and tickets right here at Love 101, 81 Hagley Park Road. $6,000 regular and $20,000 VIP. Don't miss out!
Anything possible with a little savings in your hand.
Now the time by Jan Bank is
7:30.
We have, as a people, been fed a steady diet of information, oftentimes untrue, that nothing na go on. This is probably the first government that almost every single day of the week could have a groundbreaking, a handing over, a contract signing, a commissioning, because enough things are going on in Jamaica under the Andrew Holness-led government. Enough things. So when they come to you with the negativity about nothing na go on, you may not see what is happening. So when you see groundbreaking, groundbreaking. We have been working 2 years, 3 years before bringing it through a process. And we have all kinds of projects, not in a pipeline. Our projects are on a track. So we have a train line of projects to come.
This message is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
Ready to experience 6 times more freshness in your clothes? Try Downy Scent Beads. Its fragrance is so amazing, you have to sniff it to believe it. Try Downy Scent Beads today. 6 times more freshness versus using detergent alone.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
Save so you can make the par, travel par, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now look at newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. First of all, in the Gleaner, Usain Bolt named Guinness World Records icon. Also in the Gleaner, Chuck wants all JPs to make wills, saying they must lead by example. In the Observer, US recovers 225 million stolen in crypto scam. Then Jamaica's inflation eases to 5.2%. And in Loop News, no injuries after car crash or car crashes into A&E department at Black River Hospital. And in Guyana, former opposition legislator launches new political party. Interesting. Those are some of the major stories in our newspapers. Well, coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What will determine who you will vote for as your representative in this general elections? Leave a comment on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
There is
Life can feel overwhelming at times, but you don't have to face it alone. The Ministry of Counseling and Prayer of the Edgewater Baptist Church is here to support you with our caring and confidential telephone counseling service. Whatever you're going through, grief, stress, family challenges, or just feeling stuck, our trained counselors are ready to listen, pray, and guide you toward hope and healing. Take the first step today. Call us at 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Help is available through the Prayer and Counseling Ministry of the Edgewater Baptist Church. Remember, help is just a phone call away. That's 876-220-6474 or 876-332-7956. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Call now and let us walk this journey with you.
happy, 'cause you have strayed.
You're invited to listen to Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, every Thursday at 10 p.m. First Thursdays, the New United Bible Way Church of God with Reverend Dr. Jasmine Brown. Every second Thursday, Apostle Dr. Elaine Richards, Public Relations Officer, Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, and Women of God in Service, Wojis Ministries International. Every third Thursday, Senior Pastor Fitzroy Carr, Praise Deliverance Ministry. Every fourth Thursday, Reverend Dr. Leonie Samuels, pastor at the Richmond New Testament Church of God in St. Mary. And on fifth Thursdays, Reverend Dr. Ruthlyn McClarty, Kingdom Covenant Family Church. That's Encounter, presented by the Jamaica Association of Full Gospel Churches, every Thursday at 10 p.m. right here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now join Jokal for a look at how our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp friends answered today's question: what will determine whom you vote or whom you'll vote for as your representative in the upcoming general elections? Jokal.
All right, so we have a response from not Cherry, but Edna in Montego Bay. Edna, let me hear from you.
Good morning, Morning Watch. Good morning, Love 101 listeners and staff. Okay, my reason for voting will always be, I am a citizen of my country and that's my right. Secondly, performance. Thirdly, accountability. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Edna. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Now, as we segue into the second watch, indeed, the past few days have been quite hot, with temperatures as well as air humidity considerably higher than usual in many areas, not to mention the sandstorms. And as we head further into the summer and hurricane season, how is our health going to be impacted? Well, to discuss this and other related issues, we have online Dr. Brian James, founder of the Caribbean Climate Action Group of Medical Associations and the former president of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Good morning to you, Dr. James. Not hearing you. Good morning, Dr. James. Are you muted? Dr. James, not hearing you. Are you muted, sir? Okay, we need to sort that out. Of course, we're in the second watch and we are looking on the killer heat, natural disasters, public and mental health, and we are asking. Yes, Dr. James.
Had to change my mic.
Yeah, good to have you with us again.
It's been a while. Thank you.
Yes, it is. Yes, I haven't been able to see you at all. We're both busy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Good to have you with us. Now, Doc, what, if any, is the correlation between climate, natural disasters, and public health?
There are multiple correlations between them. I think after I've spoken about this, I hope we'll get a chance to look at the other side of the coin. But if you look at climate change, because of what is really happening is that there has been an increase in the temperature of the globe, of the Earth, right? And as a result of that, we have rising temperatures, increasing temperatures in the atmosphere, and then we have weather conditions that are in the extreme. So you will have a lot more hurricanes, a lot more severe hurricanes. You will have more frequent droughts. You'll have more severe droughts. And you will have a lot of weather conditions that are of more extreme nature than we are used to. And then the third component of this problem is rising sea level. And of course, all of this is tied into the rising temperature. Yeah. So if we look at its effects on health, the first thing that you may be able to look at is the effect of the severe weather itself. So that can cause infrastructure damage. I remember like 2 years ago, there was a big weather event in Trinidad, and the many health centers were destroyed. So just that, if the ability to provide healthcare can be affected by the severity, then there would be injuries and fatalities, which put greater stress on the healthcare delivery system. The heat itself is associated with more heat-related illnesses, heat strokes, etc. Then there are cardiovascular problems. Now, it is not immediately obvious to most people, but whenever there is an increase in the temperature, there has been shown to be an increase in the number of strokes that people have, the number of heart attacks, in the severity of things like diabetes and hypertension and kidney failure. That is a well-known connection.
Wow.
And because of the air pollution that is associated with this climate change, there is an increased incidence of asthma, and we spoke about cardiovascular disease and the fatalities that come with them. There is something that I feel like really needs to be pointed out. So when I was a medical student, right, we used to learn about dengue. It was almost a historical thing by that time, right? We used to have to learn because in recent times there were dengue outbreaks and so on. That was 30 years ago. What I have noticed and what the system has noticed is over the past, since 2018 or 19, we now have a dengue season again. And can I tell you that dengue is one of the most devastating illnesses that I have seen in my medical career. And it is a result, we believe, of the fact that temperatures are going up. And so it has a positive effect on the reproduction of the mosquitoes that are responsible for dengue. And that has been shown as well. So chickpea as well and malaria are things that are vector-borne diseases that are increased because of the increased temperature. Waterborne disease, because of the shortage of water that comes with drought, things like cholera and Campylobacter and Cryptosporidia are increased as well. Then, because much of what we do in this context of an increased temperature, increased basic average temperatures, there is an increase in all kinds of mental health problems. In fact, 2 years ago, it was noticed that the suicide levels in Jamaica were higher than they had ever been. And we believe that this had, clearly coming out of the pandemic and so on, that may have contributed, but we are finding that things like anxiety, depression, despair, and post-traumatic stress disorder are increased as the temperature increases.
Stick a pin right there, Dr. James. You have said a mouthful. We need to have a break so we can process a lot of what you have said. We'll be right back.
The time by Grace Could Move is
7:45.
Get your CC Wine and tickets right here at Love 101, 81 Hagley Park Road. $6,000 regular and $20,000 VIP. Don't miss out!
Febreze. Imagine getting home after a long day and it smells so amazing that it makes you smile. Try Febreze plugs. An air freshener that delivers continuous scent for up to 50 days when you plug it in low mode. Indulge in wonderful scents for weeks with Febreze.
We've seen a lot of our customers make some good moves over the years. Whether it's sharing a hug with a friend you haven't seen in a long time or sharing a meal, Grace has been there. So let's keep making these moments together, because rest assured, every time you choose Grace, you know you're making a good move.
Always a good move when you're moving with Grace. Recycling Partners of Jamaica. Yeah, we got to make a change, and we have to do it now, can't wait for later. We put plastic in its place, and we all can agree that will be safer than in the gullies and in the drains. Recycling Partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place. Well, I say no matter about your class or status or title, got to be responsible and recycle. Yes, we have talk about plastic buckle board. You have to make sure say that the right type. So look for the triangle with the one or two. But that don't matter could a yellow or blue. You have to just make sure them empty, collect them plenty, recycling revenue. So listen up, Jamaica, I'm saying it's time to make a change. Recycling Partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place, and we all can agree that will be safer than in the gullies in the every veins. Recycling Partners of Jamaica. We put plastic in its place.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. And it's the second watch. We are looking on the increase in adverse environmental conditions and its impact on the health sector as a whole. In so doing, we have online Dr. Brian James, who is the founder of the Caribbean Climate Action Group of Medical Associations and former president of the Medical Association of Jamaica. Dr. James, welcome back to our program, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, before the break, you're giving us a mouthful in terms of the rising temperature and the rising sea levels and how it impacts severe weather, or how severe weather impacts the health sector, air pollution, dengue, waterborne diseases, infrastructural damage. It affects the ability to provide proper health care, heat-related illnesses, and I think you were focusing not too long ago in terms of the dengue situation. Please continue, Dr. James.
Right. So the final thing the last thing I'd started to say was its effect on mental health. As the temperatures go up, there's an increased incidence of anxiety, despair, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And I had noticed 2 years ago that we had, I didn't see the figures for last year and this year so far, we had seen the highest numbers of suicide in Jamaica over that time. I'm not sure if there is a causation, but there is clearly a correlation. The last thing that I wanted to speak about was in terms of effect on the healthcare delivery and health of and public health is water and food supply, right? As the temperatures go up, water supply and food supply become affected negatively. And that increases malnutrition, that increases diarrheal illnesses. And because of what happens in the sea, the carbon dioxide in the air gets dissolved in the sea and makes the sea more acidic, and therefore less fish can survive. And there are algae that bloom on the surface of the sea and impairs the function, the biological systems that are in the sea. So when people go off to catch fish, they will come back with empty nets, and they need Jesus now to, sort of improve their yield. So that is something that we are seeing, that we are likely to see more and more of as the temperatures go up. So those are the things that happen as a result of rising sea levels, weather extremes, and
Right.
increased temperatures.
Right. What are the worst case scenarios then, Doc, that may occur or recur as a result of the aforementioned challenges?
Well, the worst case scenario is overwhelming of the healthcare delivery system as a result of all of the things that I just mentioned. So the healthcare delivery system is unable or might become unable to deal with all of these things, particularly on a seasonal basis. You realize that during the summer, right, when the temperature gets higher, all of these things just go off the chart. And you're seeing there are some hospitals right now in Jamaica where people who are admitted, right, the doctors have seen them, they've decided that they need to be in hospital, but there are no beds in the hospital to accommodate them because the admission levels are so high. There are people sitting down outside waiting for admission.
Yes.
These are the worst case scenarios.
Yes.
When the dengue season comes around, when November and December comes around, you will find that the children's hospitals and the children's wards at other hospitals,
Overwhelmed.
they become completely overwhelmed. And I mean, this is something that I've seen.
Yeah.
I've seen us needing to pitch tents outside of hospitals in order to accommodate the flow of people that are coming in because of dengue.
Yeah. Well, do you feel that our health sector is under-equipped to deal with it, to improve, to make advances going forward? Where are we now from your vantage point?
Well, I think that there are gaps in our ability to handle it's called climate resilience, really. In our ability to adapt to the needs that are placed upon us because of this climate change. So I mean, we really need to look from a public policy perspective on sort of how the funds are allocated in a system like ours where there is not enough of a pie to slice it up any better. We have to look a lot on putting things in place, and that's the thing that I wanted to speak to you a little bit more about, putting things in place to reduce our contribution to this climate change. All right, this is a whole of government responsibility, whole population responsibility. We have to decrease the effect that we have, because climate change is a man-made phenomenon.
They're saying though that we are, we are the smallest in the year. It's in big industrial nations that's really creating much of the problem.
Absolutely, that's correct. And but we have a voice, for example, in the United Nations, where we can present our case to the sort of the big people to say, you're messing up the world and it is affecting us more than it's affecting you, but it is in fact affecting you. And I mean, it's unfortunate that our neighbors to the north pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, but we cannot give up. It is just not an option.
And I know, Doc, some of the presentations made from the Caribbean representatives, the time that they are given to make their presentation is minuscule, It's
I know.
A little 5 minutes, 10 minutes thing, and that's it.
But we can't give up, though.
You
we have to do our part, right? We definitely, and it's not just a matter of reducing our carbon footprint, but it is also a matter of resilience, developing systems that will better prepare us for when these things happen. So things like renewable energy sources, things like changing our diet, things like water conservation,
No carbon
harvesting of
footprint.
exactly, using renewable energy
Mm.
in hospitals, for example. Because another thing that we are missing in the conversation is the effect of healthcare on global warming, on climate change. Healthcare has a very large, disproportionate effect on increasing the carbon footprint of any geographical location. So we can actually start in our hospitals and our health centers to reduce our carbon footprint. So that's another side of the coin.
Hold up. Tell us a little bit more about that. That sounds interesting.
All right. So the two main things. It has been found that waste is one of the biggest contributors to an entity's carbon footprint.
Mm.
And that is something that happens in our healthcare delivery system, in healthcare delivery systems all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we can do, for example, is to implement some kind of waste reduction system. And waste might include electricity.
Okay.
So for example, in the
solar
operating
one.
theater, right, that's one thing. But in the operating theater, where I spend all of my time, you will have, so there are huge lights that are in there to make sure that you see the surgery when you see the surgical area when you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you leave, when you are finished
Mm-hmm.
and you go outside, the lights might be left on, and the lights in the room might be left on, and the AC is on, and the oxygen, there might be sort of baseline oxygen. So we can put technology in place that will turn off the lights when there's no usage, there's no movement inside of the room, that will turn off the machines that run off oxygen when it's not in use, those kinds of things. We can also go back to, and there are lots of systems in northern climes and so on that they're trying to move away from disposable items, right? To the extent that it is possible and it is safe, right? There are some things that you don't have to dispose of the moment you've used it. You can recycle it. So recycling is another big one that we can use. And then, as you spoke about, use of renewable energy. All hospitals, all health centers have large surface areas for their roof. They can collect water. They can utilize the sun as energy source. They can utilize wind.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we can do.
Good. And of course, on a personal level, individual level, we also need to be more mindful of our personal health,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Transportation. If we walk more and drive less, our carbon footprint is reduced.
Great.
Got
to leave it there.
Right.
Yes. So much. But thanks so very much. Thanks so very much, Dr. Brian James, for joining us today. And I pray that person not only are listeners, but doers of some of the suggestions, if not all, that have been given. Have a safe and productive day.
Thank you very much. You too, sir.
Great. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. For information or to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been The Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Kathy Gale, and our guest, I'm Dylan Toussaint, returning you to Love in the Morning with Jukal Dyer. Returning you to Love in the Morning with Jukal Dyer.
Time on 101 is just about 8 o'clock, and you are now invited to listen to Forward in Faith, brought to you by the